APC chieftains clash with Governor Ortam over calls for state of emergency in Benue. And as the world marked International Day of Victims of Enforced Disappearances, Nigeria accounts for about 24,000 missing persons in Africa. Well, this is Plus Politics, a Diane Mary Aniko. Influential members of the Benue State chapter of the All Progressive Congress, APC, have weighed in on the security situation in the state and have asked Mr. President to immediately take steps to declare a state of emergency. Meanwhile, elder statesman Wanteg Paul Unongo has cautioned those castigating Governor Samuel Ortam of Benue State for speaking out against the herdsmen attacks in his state and the worsening insecurity in the country to refrain from their actions. Well, joining us to discuss this and more is the Attorney General of Benue State, Michael Gusa. Thank you very much for joining us, sir.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Well, here we are again, still talking about the ongoing crisis in your state, and there has been seemingly a war of words between your governor and Mr. President's aides, not necessarily the president, and there seems to be a back and forth. And now the APC in your state have joined, in the war of words. But let me just name a couple of them. Akume, Ebute, Gamade, and several other members of the APC have called for a state of emergency in your state. Now, you're a legal person, so you'd be able to help me out. Following the recent happenings in the state, why do you think that these call for a state of emergency shouldn't be? Because they seem to think that this is what they need for the insecurity in your state to happen, to be abated, rather.
Thank you very much for having me. Like I said before, I want to say that His Excellency Samuel Ortam, who is the governor of Benue State, is not the governor of APC. He's not the governor of PDP or any political party. His Excellency Governor Samuel Ortam is the governor of Benue State. And we are all aware of the security challenges that we have been facing here in Benue State and so many other states in Nigeria. And so here is a situation where you have a state that have about 6 million population. And then about 1.5 million of this, out of this population is in IDP camps because of the series of attacks by the herdsmen who have launched this war against the people of Benue State. Come to Benue State, I want to tell you that out of the 23 states and local governments that you have in Benue State, more than 19 local governments are being occupied, as I talk to you, by these headers, by this militia, or by this Fulani herdsmen. And so the governor is doing his best to bring peace in Benue State. And anything anybody from Benue State can do is to encourage him, is to support him. This is because the governor has not drawn a battle line with the presidency. The governor is somebody that knows the law. The governor is somebody that respects due process and rule of law. The governor is somebody that is very humble. And so, trying to change the narratives by calling for the presidency to declare a state of emergency in Benue State is doing politics with the security challenges that the state is facing. Is doing politics with what security challenges that the entire country is facing. Because this is not just in Benue State. You hear and you see these killings every day in Niger State, in Plateau State, in Katsina State, in Zamfara State, and all over the country. So it is not just in Benue State. And then for anybody from Benue State to call himself members of a political party and then call on the presidency to come and declare state of emergency in Benue State, I think is most unfortunate.
I'm curious because these people who have called for a state of emergency are people who are from your state. Now, what I do not know, and you're going to help me with that, is do those people live in your state? These APC members in your state, I'm talking about Senator Gemade, I'm talking about Akume. If these people do live in the state, maybe they see this particular insecurity from a different prism, and hence the reason why they're asking for a state of emergency. And again, I'm asking, do you not think it's necessary? Because the governor has painted a picture as to how bad the situation is. So would a state of emergency not help the situation? Or is it, like you said, just a political way of addressing the issue? Because you have also said, sir, that your governor is trying to bring peace to the state. But if there is much more insecurity in your state, then peace cannot really reign, can it?
Well, that is why His Excellency will continue to raise these security issues with the presidency. It is not just in Benue State, but you know that what the governor who has immunity can say to the president, myself and any other person cannot say it, because His Excellency the governor is governing Benue State. And you know that Benue State is one of the federating units in Nigeria project. And so he superintends Benue State, you know, and we look, he is supposed to be the eyes of the presidency. And so if there's anything that is happening here in Benue State, His Excellency, who is also the Chief Security Officer of the state, is in a better position to inform the presidency. And all the issues that he has been raising are concerning security. And for anybody to say that the governor is insulting the president, the governor is doing this, the governor has done this, let the president come out and establish what he has said. I want to tell you that His Excellency has always told us, those of us who are working with him, and the entire people of Benue State, that he has tremendous respect for the presidency. And these are the issues that this group of people are calling for state of emergency in Benue State. Are these things only happening in Benue State here? The security challenges are all over the place. Look at what has happened in the Northeast over a period of time. But here in Benue State, His Excellency is doing his best to see to it that the citizens of Benue State are living in peace. And that is why the issue of the law that forbids open grazing came about. This is because he was looking for a situation whereby he will create an enabling environment for both the herders and the farmers in Benue State to live together.
But that doesn't seem to be working, is it? I mean, you always make reference to that. And please don't get me wrong. I'm not in any way trying to query if, you know, the governor did the right thing or not. But I'm saying if you have tried something and it hasn't necessarily worked, shouldn't other options be explored? Again, and that's why I asked that question, that these people who are asking for a state of emergency, could they be seeing something else that your government isn't seeing?
The option cannot be that of declaration of state of emergency in Benue State, because the entire country is facing these security challenges. And I think what the presidency can do is to change the security architecture or in the whole country, not just in Benue State. In now coming out to call on the presidency to declare state of emergency in Benue State by this group of people who are not even resident in Benue State. They did that press conference in Abuja. Let them come back home and be in touch with the people. Let them come back home and see what the governor is doing. Let them come back home and see what is happening in Benue State. Not for them to stay in Abuja and do a press conference. Here in Benue State, the stakeholders have come together and they have given their support to what the efforts that the governor is doing. And that is why the governor is crying on a daily basis that the presidency should also do more to complement what he is doing here in Benue State.
Mr. Gusa, I have spoken with several security experts, you know, on the same issue in Benue State, and they're saying that the responsibility of dealing with crime, criminality, and security in states lies solely on the shoulders of the governor of the states, and we also know that your governor has continuously called on Mr. President to wade into the matter. But if your governor's responsibility is to douse, the problem, and you said, he's tried to bring peace with the anti-grazing bill and all of that, like I said, if all of those things he has tried isn't working, shouldn't he be trying other options, especially if he has the power as the chief security officer of the state? Why should the president be doing his job for him?
Well, I think the issue of saying the governor is the chief security of the state is even in court, because he is not the commander-in-chief. He doesn't have control over the police. He does not have control over the military. He doesn't have control over the security agents.
Does he have to have control over them for them to be able to, these security operatives operate within that sovereign state, which is Benue State? Their duty, of course, the reason why they're dispatched to that state is to handle the security apparatus in that state. Whether the governor has powers over them or not, it's their responsibility not to work or partner with the government of the day to deal with insecurity. Why does the governor need any form of power over the security apparatus for them to work?
Well, that is why I say the governor, as far as Benue State is concerned, he is doing his best to ensure that there is peace in Benue State. And he is working in harmony with all the security agencies in the state. But like I said, being a governor and being called the security chief of the state does not make you the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. And so wherever he has some difficulties or wherever he has his own limitations, I think nothing stops him from calling upon the presidency to intervene or to assist, maybe by sending more troops to the state, because these IDPs who are in camp cannot remain in these camps. These people are entitled to go back to their ancestral homes and continue with their farming activities. And if these people will continue to live in IDP camps, I don't think that is what the governor came to do. He's here not to superintend over dead bodies. He's here not to superintend over IDP camps. But he is here to ensure that there's peace in the state. And that is where anytime there are these problems, there are these challenges, there are these issues, he will always call upon the presidency, because he's looking up to the president, who is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces in Nigeria.
Now, these same highly placed members of the APC had choice words for the governor, but something that jumped out for everyone is the fact that they were asking that the president stops verbally abusing or attacking Mr. President. And then they've also said that the governor is on his own in terms of attacking the president, that he's on his own. What do you specifically think they meant by that when they said the governor is now on his own? Plus, why has your principal resorted to verbal attacks, if there be any? Has he exhausted all normal avenues to get Mr. President's attention?
Well, I don't think there's any attack that is coming from His Excellency, the governor of Benue State, against the presidency. I know as a fact that His Excellency, apart from raising this alarms, he has also written series of letters to the presidency, alerting the presidency on the security challenges in the state. These people, this group of persons who now did that press conference yesterday, are only, just like I said before, they are only inciting the presidency against the governor of Benue State. And I want to say, because I know as a fact that the governor cannot insult the president. He has never insulted the president. Raising this alarm does not, become insults against the presidency. They are only trying to say, they are only trying to draw a line between the presidency and the governor. And I know that the governor knows more than that. He will not insult the president. He has never insulted the president.
My question again to this is, these members of the APC, of course, like you said, the governor is not the governor of just one political party, it's the governor of Benue State. How have members of the opposition helped in dealing with this issue? Has there been a handshake across the table in dealing with this issue? Because all and sundry have to be affected, whether they are, when the bandits come, they do not ask what political party you belong to. So, it could affect anybody, whether they be friends and family members of those who are in the different political parties. So has there been some form of synergy, a handshake across the table, a coming together of all political leaders and representatives in the state to dialogue on how to deal with this issue? Has there been any such thing?
Well, it is unfortunate that somebody who was 2 times the governor of Benue State, somebody who was a senator who was elected by these good people for 3 times to represent them in the Senate, will now want to destroy the democracy that gave him those opportunities. These are the same people that voted for him, and these are the same people that are languishing in IDP camps now. He has never for once taken his time to visit these IDP camps to see what these people are going through. And then for him to lead others to go to Abuja and then do a press conference calling on the presidency to come and declare state of emergency in Benue State, I think is most unfortunate.
But you haven't answered my question. Has there been a reach out from your government to those in the opposition, which might be a very difficult thing to do, but then when you're dealing with insecurity, shouldn't that be the case?
It is very open. Even yesterday, we had state stakeholders meeting here in Benue State, and the invitation was extended to all the political parties, the traditional rulers, all the stakeholders in the state here. And then they chose to stay away from the stakeholders meeting that was held to extract the issues, to extract the problems that Benue people are facing. They chose to go and have the, not even once, not even twice, not even thrice. You know, he is somebody who is operating an open door policy. And then his government is open to all. That is why I started by saying that His Excellency Governor Otom is not governor of PDP or governor of APC or any other political party. He is the governor of Benue State. And he keeps challenging Benue indigenes that if anybody has any superior argument on any issue that can add value to what he's doing in Benue State, that should be brought on the table so that it will be discussed and agreed upon.
Okay. Now, let's talk about the job of Mr. President in dealing with this issue, because I've seen your governors call on the presidency many times. We all know that the president is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. We also know that when it comes to security formations and chiefs across states, the buck stops at Mr. President's table because he commands these service chiefs. But why do you think that the presidency seems to be very mute on this issue of Benue? Or is it that the presidency is doing what it can to deal with the situation, but then maybe your governor doesn't see it as an good enough move by the presidency? What exactly is the challenge?
Well, I really cannot say, but like I've been saying, His Excellency is the governor of Benue State, and he's in charge as far as Benue State is concerned. And if there are issues that are beyond him, he can always call on the presidency. He can always inform the presidency. He can always alert the presidency. Look at the issues that I'm facing here in my own state. If there's anything that can be done to assist, if there's anything that can be done to complement what the governor is doing, I think that is what should be done.
So what exactly does the Governor Otom want the president to do in the case of Benue? I want to be, for example, I'm the president now and I'm listening to you and you have finally gotten my attention. What do you want?
Well, for instance, if the number of security men that have been deployed to Benue State are overstretched, it is for the presidency to also direct that there should be more security men that should be sent to Benue State to complement what the troops that were already deployed are doing in the state. I think that is what the governor is saying. He's saying that these killings are too many. And so these security men who are working here with me are overstretched. And so there is need to do more. I think this is just what the governor is saying. And then for anybody to go out and say... Isn't that
supposed to be directed to the Chief of Army Staff? Is that not supposed to be his attention? Should that not be drawn to his attention instead of Mr. President? I mean, the president is not in charge of... The president is not in charge of dispatching men and personnel of the army to Benue State. Should that not be the Chief of Army Staff's duty? Are we not assigning roles that are not supposed to be that of Mr. President to the president?
The president, because he's the commander-in-chief, so the president can direct.
I still don't get it. If I am the IGP and you're saying, you're complaining that there are not enough men in my state, should that complaint not be directed at me instead of Mr. President? I'm the one who gives the orders for these men to be dispatched. It's not the president's job. And I'm not in any way trying to, hold brief for the president. I'm not a spokesperson of the president, but I'm just trying to make sense of it all. Shouldn't this be channeled to the authorities that are in charge of these men? And then if nothing is done, and then they direct you to Mr. President, then you now go to the president with this particular complaint.
That is what I even said before, that when this crisis, when these killings, and when these problems started, a series of letters were written by His Excellency the Governor to the presidency. He wrote these letters to DGSS. He wrote these letters to Inspector General of Police. He wrote it to the Chief of Army Staff. Now, all this while, nothing happened. But I want to say that this is what even led to the deployment of Operation Warstroke here in Benue State. But what I'm saying is that they are doing their best, but you discover that these problems are still on, just like in any other state, not just in Benue State here. You are aware of the killings in other states. And so the governor is saying that, well, you have sent your security men here who are working with me, we are collaborating with them, we are working together, but they are overstretched. So can we have more of this, more of these security men, so that they can complement what these ones that are already on ground are doing in Benue State? That is just what the governor is saying.
You know how they say that, again, I'm not speaking for the presidency, how, you can have local solutions for local problems. You talked about stakeholder meetings that you have had, your government has had with stakeholders in the state. I want to believe that you have security experts working with the presidency and the chief, security protocol officers in your state would come up with ideas, but there always is a genesis to problems. Like, for example, in Zamfara, they have a local problem that escalated to what we have today. And I'm guessing that in Benue, there has to be a teething problem that needs to be fixed locally that might reduce this situation one way or the other. It might not win the war, but could it at least give you some form of respite?
Well, like in Benue State here, when His Excellency came in 2015, he discovered that the problems were between the herders and the crop farmers in the state. And that is what gave rise to the law forbidding open grazing, because the consensus was that it is because there is no restriction of movement by these livestock who are destroying crops in the farm that gave rise to a series of killings in the state. He now sent these proposals by way of executive bill to the Benue State House of Assembly, who now conducted public hearing and eventually signed his intent to this into a law. Even when this law was passed by the Benue State House of Assembly and assented to by His Excellency, like I said, he still gave a window period of about 6 months for people of Benue State to adopt to the provisions of this law. And we were looking at it as a recipe. We are looking at it as a panacea for peace in the state here. But the headers insisted that they will not respect the law. They insisted that this law should not be implemented in the state here. And that is why they came out to say that if that law is not abolished, if that law is not reviewed, they will continue to kill the people of Benue State. And that is what is happening.
Has this law been enforced? Because if there is some form of enforcement, then these people who are saying that they will continue to kill would be apprehended. But is there some form of enforcement? Because if you're caught openly grazing, then there has to be penalties. If there's not open grazing, you would not have more and more people migrating into farms or causing trouble. So really, again, the bulk is at the table of your governor and the security in your state, the security operatives in your state. How well have you been able to enforce this law on open grazing? Again, I hear, according to the people who had a press conference yesterday, members of the APC, that your governor needs to be probed by the EFCC. And they're asking that certain amount of monies be accounted for. Is that the other bone of contention? Because this seems more political to me than the issue that's at hand.
That is what I keep saying, that for anybody to play politics with the lives of the people of Benue State is most unfortunate. But I want to say that we
But do
are
you not think that your
implementing
government
this
is
law.
also playing a part in that politicizing of the situation in your state?
No, how? Because we're here, we are seeing what is happening here. We have first-hand information about what is happening here in the state. And that is why whenever this happens, the governor will always raise alarm. The governor will always raise it so that let the presidency know. But what I was going to say is that we have been implementing this law, and I want to say that more than 200 people have been tried and convicted. It is not just forbidding, the law is not just forbidding open grazing in the state. The law is also against cattle rustling. And so many people have been convicted who rustle cattle or livestock in the state here. So many have been convicted. Some are still standing trial in several courts in Benue State here. And so for anybody to come out and make spurious allegations against the governor that he has embezzled so much money, well, it is left for him to come and prove. But for those of us who are here in the state, we know that the governor is being prudent with the management of resources, which is very meager at his disposal, in the face of all these security challenges. And so it is left for them to prove.
Okay. Michael Gusa is the Attorney General in Benue State, and he's been our guest this evening. Thank you very much for speaking with us.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you all for staying with us. We'll take a short break, and when we return, we have a conversation on the issues of missing persons in Africa, and most especially in Nigeria. Stay with us.
Hello and welcome. It's Nimasa This Week, the voice of maritime. Nimasa This Week is brought to you by the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency. Statutorily mandated to ensure that there is regulation and promotion of matters affecting our waters. NIMASA bears responsibility for search and rescue, shipping development, and ship registration.
NIMASA This Week, the voice of maritime, showing on this channel.
Businesses in Africa can be very challenging. In Nigeria, it is particularly intimidating, and successful builders have learned how to navigate a hostile environment to unlock opportunities. But one major challenge businesses face is how to filter through the noise and identify where their ideal customers exist. Get insight and practical steps from industry players and captains of industries. Hear success stories to help you make informed decisions as you scale your business in Nigeria. Watch Business Insights at this time on PlusTvAfrica.
according to the International Committee of the Red Cross, ICRC, nearly 45,000 people are currently declared missing across Africa. Nigeria accounts for more than half of the total number of missing persons in Africa, with some 24,000 people registered as missing. Now, other countries with high numbers of disappeared people, some include Ethiopia, South Sudan, Somalia, Libya, and the Democratic Republic of Congo, even Cameroon. Well, joining us to discuss these numbers and, of course, the issue of missing persons is Aliyu Dawob. He is the Communications Specialist, International Committee of Red Cross. Thank you very much, Mr. Dawob, for joining us.
Thank you very much, and good evening.
Great. For a lot of people, they're wondering, really, is there a day that people really observe missing persons? Because, really, it probably wouldn't have become an issue if not for the fact that people are hearing this. But this is news to some people. But when you talk about missing persons, who qualifies as a missing person or someone who's disappeared?
Thank you for inviting me into your program. I don't think there is any qualification for one to be qualified as missing, rather than the family of this person coming to the ICRC, coming to the Red Cross to certify that they have had a family member that is missing, and they are registering him to be looked after so that they can be reunited. So for us in the ICRC, a missing person is someone whose family came to us and declared him missing, and then they want the organization to give support in terms of reuniting them. This, I think, is the qualification of someone who is missing.
Well, now, talking about war-torn countries or, unrest and pockets of violence or crisis in certain parts of the world, we know that it can be a very daunting, situation to try to explain to the average person why there's so many disappeared persons. Because sometimes these people might be abducted, some of them might have been killed, and some of them just wander away. So according to statistics, like I said at the opening of this show, 57% of these disappeared persons are children. And I want to understand how these people can be accounted for, especially in cases where there are invasions or abductions or war. How do you account for them? I mean, you said that people can come to the ICRC, and that's for people who know. But what about those who do not have the ICRC to go to, or people who don't even have the knowledge that they should be telling someone about the fact that a family member is missing?
Yeah, thank you. This is actually an interesting question that you have asked. First, talk about people who disappeared. The mandate of the International Committee of the Red Cross, the ICRC, and also National Red Cross, and in this case we talk about the Nigerian Red Cross Society, is to support and assist people that are affected by armed conflict and violence. Many times when we are working, a lot of people, a lot of organizations just feel that assisting people with emergency assistance, food, water, shelter, temporary shelter, and the rest of them are the basic needs. But a lot of people undermine the fact that people get missing and the trauma the families pass through in trying to think about these loved ones that they have missed over the years, over the months, is something that really goes a lot into them. So disappearing in conflict is something that has always been common. In conflict situations, first thing that people the first thing that people think about is get into safety. And in the course of getting to safety, you find out that your family member has been left behind. This leaving behind of a family member can be, of course, out of fear. This is one of the aspects of people that can lead to people to get separated. The number two aspect can be people getting arrested because of conflict. Of course, during conflict, a lot of people get arrested by security forces. A lot of people get arrested by the armed groups, and so on and so forth. So these people that are arrested, sometimes the family members do not know where they are. And the family members need to have answers. where the families are. So this is another layer of what? Of disappearance in conflict situations. The other one, unfortunately, is when people get killed or died while in separation, either because they have been killed because of the conflict, or they've been killed because of so many reasons in conflict situation. So these are layers that can make people to disappear.
Okay.
So our role here is to try to see how we can follow up on all these layers. If people are dead, then we should be able to work closely with our forensic experts. If there are organized burials, if there are no organized burials, unfortunately, this is something that is very, very complicated. But if there are organized burials, even if it is a mass burial, and people are organized and numbered and photographed based on where they are situated, then this is really going to help for people to know, okay, this is a loved relative that has been that has died because of the conflict, and this is the place where he was buried. At least the families will have that. In terms of arrest, our organization does a lot of what we call detention visiting people in detention areas. Like I said, when conflict happens, a lot of people get arrested. And when they get arrested, they are imprisoned in various detention facilities. They have, yes, of course, they have been arrested by security forces. The security forces have the right to prosecute these people, but while they are in arrest, in detention, they have their own rights. They have the right to life. They have the right to be prosecuted. They have the right for the family members to know where they are located, and so on and so on and so on. They have all these rights. The ICRC is not going into detention areas to tell people, hey, why are you arresting this person? No, but to make sure that the standard of the international humanitarian law is respected in the course of treating people that are affected during conflict. So these are situations. Sometimes we have short separations. So short separations can mean people separated for a few months, a few weeks, a few days sometimes. This is something very common in the north central states of Nigeria, where we have conflict between farmers and herders. It's easily for people to get separated. After 2 or 3 days, you see them getting reunited. In the northeast of Nigeria, where you have the conflict that has been protracted for more than a decade, that is where you have a lot of challenges. And you can see the Lake Chad region, 4 countries surrounding the Lake Chad is really making things much more difficult. Once people are able to jump into another country, then it becomes the territory of another country. Coming back can be a little problematic.
you just brought into my next question, because I was going to ask, especially for areas where, you know, bordering countries are having almost the same kinds of conflict, armed conflicts, or, you know, a guerrilla warfare of sorts. How then do you generate these data? Because especially in countries like Nigeria, where our data is, I mean, we generate data, but then those data can be sometimes questioned, and sometimes it's not thorough enough for you to go by. And so most times, even as journalists, we rely on international communities like ICRC or the CSIS for certain facts and figures. So how do you generate this data? How did, for example, you come up with this 45% from Nigeria? How do you get your data?
Okay, thank you very much for this question also. Getting data is something that we put on the table. We have first our community contact center number that people are informed about in various media organizations. We have cards that are given to people during our activities in the northeast of Nigeria, and also in the south of Nigeria and the north central states. We try to give out these cards. It's clearly indicating our community contact center that is running all the work days and all the working hours. People are free to call. It's a toll-free line. So this is one aspect of it. Second aspect of it is that we work closely with the Nigerian Red Cross in this regard. So Nigerian Red Cross is spread across the country in all the 36 plus Abuja, 37 states of the federation, and all the LGAs, they have their divisions where people can also go in there and lodge in their complaints. Once a case is registered, then we take up this case and try to follow all the standard that we follow. Of course, this data that we have is a data that is limited only to the ICRC. I'm not sure if I know any other organization. Perhaps other organizations are doing this also, registering people, but I think it's good. It's good to think about this and also see how to harmonize this. One key thing I will have to mention about people that are missing, or the families who are missing people, is something that is very, very crucial. Assume that a breadwinner of a family died, or was killed or has disappeared, and the family does not know where he is. It's a lot of trauma to the family, that is one. Secondly, the families may not have access to many of his assets. He may have land that he has acquired, he may have a house, he may have a bank account, so it's almost very, very difficult, because now they are uncertain whether this person is dead or alive. They will have to pass through a lot of legal procedures to be able to reclaim or claim the assets of this person. So people just limit it to him being disappearing. But then he has been the breadwinner. Now they are living without food to eat, without clothing, without schooling, and so on and so forth. And then he had asset already that they find it very, very difficult. So legally wise, I think there should be a good way to harmonize this, to be able to make sure that these families that have lost their or their relatives have disappeared, there should be a standard way to be able to organize so that they can have access to some of the assets and some of the wealth their loved ones are having, so that the family can still keep surviving.
For someone like you who's worked across the region, different countries on the continent in terms of dealing with humanitarian issues, and these missing persons is still our focus. Many people have either been abducted because they were critics of government and so they disappeared without a trace. Many may have been, like we have stated earlier, on victims of war. Many may have been abducted by gunmen or bandits, like in the case of Nigeria. What do you think the challenge is from your work with in the different countries? What do you think the major challenge is? Is it that the governments are unable to retrieve these people, to find them and get them back? Or is it that there's some unwillingness on the part of some of these governments to actually go out of their way to find these people? For example, in Nigeria, there is a certain Daddy Yatta that's been missing forever, and nobody can account for him till today.
Sure. Okay, it's good to draw a line between a humanitarian organization and the politics of a country. So I am not going to dwell into the political angle of country or disappearance because of politics and other political angles. No, I'm going to talk about the International Committee of the Red Cross, our mandate, and what we do about the disappearing of people and the effort we are having. And also to remember that these people actually need answers to where their families are, and these people actually need to have their families reunited back to them. So the effort should be like to come together to try to see. ICRC has a mandate of supporting people that are affected by armed conflict and violence. We do not have a mandate in other contexts. The context it's actually on armed conflict and other situations of violence.
So you're telling me that you deal directly with the people and not necessarily with governments. Is that what you're saying? So you deal with the Red Cross in different countries, or what they call in other parts of the world. Then they might not necessarily be called the Red Cross, but that's what you do.
It's a family. The Red Cross is a family. It's a family of other components of the Red Cross. In Nigeria, you have the International Committee of the Red Cross, where I belong. And then you have the International Federation of Red Cross, which is in charge of managing natural disasters. And then you have the host, the Nigerian Red Cross Society, which is also supporting in terms of epidemics and also natural disasters, at the same time supporting the ICRC in armed conflict and violence. So this is the setup. In every country you go, this is how the Red Cross family is working. We are all Red Cross family. We work together. We try to support one another. This is one aspect of it. Secondly, yeah, of course, we have 1, 2, 3 challenges that we are facing. Whenever we work in conflict situations, you really have to have issues that have to do with abduction, issues that have to do with kidnappings, and so on and so forth. We are also not, we are also vulnerable to kidnappings. 2018, we had 2 of our colleagues in the northeast of Nigeria that were abducted, Hawa and Saifura. We still have them in our minds. We still remember them very well. And we attribute ourselves to them, and we will really continue to remember them. This is unacceptable for armed groups to attack civilian populations. It's unacceptable to the international humanitarian law. So civilians are always to be protected. They are not supposed to be targeted. Civilians and civilian objectives, schools, hospitals, there are ambulance services. These are all protected objectives of civilians. Economic trees, if you can list them on and on and on. As long as civilians are not part of the fighting, it's prohibited, is not allowed, according to the international humanitarian law, for them to be targeted as civilians. They should be allowed to look for their own humanitarian organizations like ours. Humanitarian actors, vehicles, and all their facilities are also supposed to be respected by all actors to the conflict.
Well, thank you very much. Aliyu Dawob is from the ICRC, and we appreciate you for speaking with us.
Thank you for inviting me, and have a good evening.
All right. Well, thank you all for staying with us. We'll take a short break now to see what Nigerians have to say about government's efforts in rescuing people who have disappeared or are missing. We'll be right back.
No. My answer is capital letter no. No, in the sense that there have been several spades of kidnapping and ransom paying inside the country. Nigeria is a sovereign state. And these bandits, they are not outside the border of this country. They are within this country. And ransom is being paid to these people. They release students or captives in batches. And the government of Nigeria goes all the way to Kenya to arrest and kidnap, abduct Nnamdi Kanu, bring him to custody here, and then we cannot find those bandits in this country. Then the government of Nigeria has not done enough in terms of security. I can tell you that. Take it anywhere, the government has not done enough.
Well, so far, to the best of my knowledge, I don't think they are doing enough. I don't even think they are doing anything, because from the previous kidnappings and the ones that is currently happening, I don't think they are doing anything. Instead, they are encouraging the kidnappers, because once the kidnap people and they pay ransom to the kidnappers or the bandits, what do you expect to those that are not doing anything to do? It improves the whole situation, get people to get more into the business.
I think they are trying their best. That's just it. I think they are trying their best. But if they put in more effort to look for those children, like maybe increase the security in the nation or increase the pay of security officers, so to boost their morale.
They are not doing well. They are not doing enough. They must work on it. As a government is to protect the life of a citizen. But every day we are hearing rumor of one thing the other, and the country is not settled. They have to do something to make sure Nigeria is a place for me and them to stay.
First of all, to start with, the government is not doing enough. The government needs to really be very intentional about rescuing these kids. For most of them the people in government have families, and how would they feel if they have their loved ones kidnapped? Obviously, if it happens to any of them, they would have done everything in their capacity to get them out of these kidnappers then.
Well, I totally agree with the respondents, because sometimes our leaders are not, alive to their responsibilities when it comes to dealing with security issues. But if it hits close to home, then maybe they might just awake and decide to do what is right by Nigerians. I am Mary Anacon, thanking you for watching. See you tomorrow. Have a good evening.
we do not understand, we will stigmatize.
What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
The suspect equally confessed.
A 500 naira they collect them. If you no talk, then go beat you. Now 2,500 and they pay.
Is it for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria?
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Bookie November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on PlusTvAfrica.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Nigeria, by extension, Africa, is faced with a lot of challenges. The growing youth population with little engagement, that is a ticking time bomb. We are a blessed people with diverse culture and highly cerebral minds who have a lot to say. And yes, we are talking. It is important we drive the right conversation that informs, inspires, influences thoughts and action. If we say